Kalalau Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Bahashem, Rahak, Wadash, and double honors to the elders of JMS Ruel. Blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel Barak. Today's lesson, no more weapons of mass destruction after the Great War. And that Great War is in reference to World War III. Now here we have another RT.com article that says U.S. may be working on plan to denuclearize with Russia and China, Trump. And the definition of denuclearize is the removal of nuclear weapons from a country, region, etc. But the article goes on to say, the claim comes after the American president ordered the start of preparations for nuclear testing. Further reading says, U.S. President Donald Trump said on Wednesday that he may be working on a plan to denuclearize in tandem with Russia and China. Last week, Trump ordered the Department of War to begin preparations for nuclear testing, claiming the U.S. is the only country that doesn't test. In response, Russian Defense Minister Andrei Belousov has suggested starting preparations for full-scale nuclear tests, while President Vladimir Putin has noted that Moscow has long said it would adhere to the Comprehensive Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, provided other members do not violate it. Now, the U.S. may be working on a plan to denuclearize with Russia and China, but what about those other nations that also possess nuclear weapons, such as India, North Korea, the United Kingdom, France, Pakistan, and the so-called Israeli state? Now, are those nations also included in those plans to denuclearize? And even if a man's heart devises his way, it is the Lord, Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahushai, that directed his steps, according to the scripture of Proverbs 16 and 9. In order to fulfill his will, man's going are of the Lord, according to Proverbs 20 and 24. So no one can upset written prophecy. There will be a third world war of utter destruction. Plus, you really believe that they are going to disarm or even remove these deadly weapons of deterrence when wars have always been fought in the month of March in order to honor their God of war? Plus, these wars have always brought about many profits. Bankers are war profiteers. That's why it has always been said that all wars are bankers' wars. No one can upset prophecy. And there will be a third world war according to the scripture of Revelation 11 and 14. That is certain. That's inevitable. Now here we have the scripture of Revelation 11 and 14. The second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. Woe means destruction, meaning that the second world war has passed, but the third world war of destruction cometh quickly. Just as soon as they pass, the CHIP, MOTB of Revelation 13 and 16. The Lord, Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, has given Esau, Edom, the knowledge of the sword, and has created the modern day smith in order to bring about the many weapons of his indignation. Right, of his righteous anger. And even though these nuclear missiles are now being used as means of deterrence against possible aggression, they will eventually be used in the destructive third world war to come. That's inevitable. That's why the scripture has said the second woe is past, and behold, the third woe cometh quickly. So there will be a third world war. A third world war will follow quickly as soon as they implement the CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16. And when it comes to the scriptures, you will not find the word nuclear, but you will find that it does speak about World War I, II, and III. Here we have the scripture of Revelation 9 and 12. One woe is past, and behold, there come two woes more hereafter. Woe means destruction. One woe is past, meaning that the first world war of destruction is past. And there come yet two world wars of destruction after these things, right? Meaning World War II and III. But we also know that the second world war of destruction has passed. But it also goes on to say that the third woe will come quickly. And it will be a destructive war of technology. And at the push of the button, those missiles are launched. And when it comes to all these smaller nations, they have leveled out the playing field by possessing nuclear capability. That's why the scripture of Joel 3 and 10 goes on to say, Joel 3 and 10, beat your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. Let the weak say, I am strong. Let the weak say, I am strong, meaning that these weaker and smaller nations are now strong due to the possession of nuclear capability. Look at Iran, for instance. They have the means of that nuclear capability. That's why the nations are on their backs, especially the nation of Babylon the Great, which is America, and the land that the small hats now inhabit. But these smaller nations are now confident in saying, I am strong, because they have leveled out the playing field in the possession of nuclear capability. Plus, they are also strong due to them being backed up by other greater superpower nations. An example of that, an example of a nation being backed up by another nation, is the Russian-Iranian Strategic Alliance. And Russia is a superpower. Even under those heavy sanctions, the Russians are a formidable opponent that should not be underestimated. The Lord's determination is to gather the nations in order to pour upon them his indignation, his righteous anger, right? That's found upon the scripture of Zephaniah 3 and 8. The Lord will return in vengeance for what they have done unto his people. And these missiles that these nations now possess represents the destruction and the end of this wicked civilization and generation at hand. So an inevitable destructive third world war shall follow quickly after the elites of society bring about that CHIP of Revelation 13 and 16 through 18. As soon as Babylon the Great receives her judgment, along with the land that the small has now inhabit, and the wicked are removed from power, from that power seat, then afterwards, those nations shall not lift up sword against any other nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore. Let's go over to that scripture of Isaiah 2 and 4. Isaiah 2 and 4. And he shall judge among the nations, and shall rebuke many people, and they shall beat their swords into plowshares, and their spears into pruning hooks. Nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. And this scripture of Isaiah 2 and 4 is also found in the scripture of Micah 4 and 3. After the great war, there shall be peace, for the nation shall not lift up sword against nation, neither shall they learn war anymore. Their swords shall be beaten into plowshares, and their spears made into pruning hooks. After the great war, there shall be peace, and all weapons of war shall be broken down. There shall be productive tools of cultivation rather than weapons of war. On that day, nation shall not rise or lift up a sword against another nation, and neither shall they learn war anymore. That is true peace. Because there will never be peace upon this wicked kingdom. The rulers do live by the sword. The only difference is that the nations will be in slavery due to them partaking in the captivity of the children of Israel. Make no mistake, war is coming. But with that being said, Kalalau Malak Yahweh, Wa Yahushai, Bahashem, Racha, Kodash, and double honors to the elders of GMS Ruel, blessings unto those men, and blessings and salutations to the Akim out there in truth, pushing his word in all sincerity and in honesty. With that being said, Shalom Israel, Brakta. And to the Akwath who also listen, Shalom, Brakta. Shalom.